Have you ever had your dreams crushed by the people who are supposed to support you, only to realize later that everything they said was too risky? Was just fear disguised as wisdom? I am Jessica, and this is my story. If you have not yet, hit follow, because what I am about to tell you will make you question trust, betrayal, and the real meaning of success. It all started 3 years ago. I had this idea for a startup, a platform that could completely change the way small businesses manage their finances. I was obsessed. I spent nights sketching the UI, mapping out logistics, calculating projections. I was living and breathing this dream. But when I told my parents, their reaction shattered me. "Jessica, that's too risky," my dad said, shaking his head like I was being reckless. "You don't even know if it's going to work. $70,000 is a lot of money to gamble." My mom chimed in with that same soothing, dismissive tone they always used when I pushed for independence. "Sweetie, maybe you should wait. It's better to be safe than sorry." I felt my chest tighten. Every word felt like a nail driving into my confidence. But I believed in my idea, even if they didn't, so I swallowed my disappointment and tried to move forward with whatever I had saved. I worked day and night, living on instant noodles and borrowed laptops, hustling every connection I had to fund this project. I learned how to code better, pitched to investors, got my prototype out there. Every rejection, every no, every skeptical look became fuel for me. One night, after an especially grueling week of coding and networking, I sat alone in my tiny apartment staring at the projection charts on my screen. The numbers were good, better than I expected, but still fragile. I thought about my parents, about how easily they dismissed me, about the confidence they refused to give me when I asked for a measly $70,000. I hated them in that moment. And yet, it made me hungrier. I refused to let their fear define me. Fast forward 6 months, the startup was gaining traction. A small angel investor came through. Intrigued by the prototype and my relentless pitch, I secured $150,000 in seed funding. Not nearly enough for the full vision, but it was a start. I thought about telling my parents, hoping maybe now they'd see, maybe now they'd regret their hesitation. I called them one evening, trying to keep my excitement calm. "Mom, Dad, I got funding." There was silence. Then my mom said, "That's good, honey. We're proud of you." Proud, but never amazed, never fully supportive. Never invested in me like I had hoped. That silence, that hesitance, burned worse than any outright criticism. I buried myself in work. The startup began to grow, slowly but surely. I hired 2 employees, rented a modest office, and the product started to attract attention. Then, a year into our journey, the real breakthrough came: a venture capitalist who wanted to offer $725,000 for a stake in the company. I remember staring at the email, my hands shaking. $725,000, more than 10 times what my parents refused to give me. I thought of my dad's too risky comment. I thought of my mom's better to be safe than sorry. I wanted to call them, to say, "See, it wasn't too risky." But something in me paused. This wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself what I could do, what I could create without their approval. The day I signed the deal, I felt a rush of power and vindication. My startup was alive, growing, and independent of their control. But just when I thought I could relax, the twist hit me. During a celebratory lunch with the VC and my team, my phone buzzed with a screenshot. My parents had just given a staggering $725,000 to my sister's bakery business. They celebrated it publicly on social media, tagging themselves with her and calling it their biggest risk ever. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. The same parents who told me it's too risky had thrown hundreds of thousands at my sister's business without hesitation. My sister, who had spent months whining about how hard it was to start anything, suddenly had a bankroll I'd begged for years. The betrayal was immediate, sharp, visceral. I stared at the screen, then at my team, then back at the email, trying to process it. I felt anger, disbelief, and, deep down, a dark spark of determination. This wasn't just about money. This was about respect, recognition, justice, and I realized then that I would not stop. I would not settle until the scales were balanced, until they understood that they could not dismiss me and bankroll everyone else around me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every conversation, every dismissal, every maybe later and too risky comment. The more I thought, the clearer it became. I had everything I needed to not just succeed, but to make sure they understood the cost of underestimating me. I started by quietly tracking the investments in my sister's bakery, watching her social media updates, noting every misstep, every exaggeration of success. The VC who invested in my startup also gave me insight into how investors looked at my sister's venture, how fragile it really was, how inflated her projections were. I realized that in a year, I could not only grow my own business exponentially, but also orchestrate a situation that would expose her and my parents' favoritism completely. I spent weeks planning, writing strategies, mapping timelines. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't angry in the usual way. I was strategic. And deep down, I felt a thrill, a dark, exciting certainty that this would be more than just success. It would be a perfect, undeniable revenge. Then one evening, while attending a tech conference in the city, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. A former investor my sister had approached was complaining about her incompetence, about her overconfidence, about how my parents had poured money blindly into a project that would collapse without careful management. He didn't know I was listening, but I did. Every word was a confirmation. She was vulnerable. She was unprepared, and she had no idea what was coming. I pulled out my notebook and began sketching out the final moves. This wasn't going to be about petty revenge. It would be psychological, undeniable, and irreversible. I would let my parents and sister believe they were still in control, while I quietly positioned myself to claim everything that should have been mine, not just the financial triumph, but the recognition, the respect, the satisfaction of proving what they never believed I could do. I looked out over the city lights that night, feeling the thrill of anticipation. The pieces were moving into place. My sister's bakery, my parents' arrogance, my own growth, it was all aligned. And I realized something terrifying and exhilarating. By the time they realized what was happening, it would be too late. But just as I was about to finalize my first moves, my phone buzzed again. Another social media post, this time from my sister. She was boasting about a big expansion coming next month, thanking our parents for their support, and implying that she was destined for success. I froze. That confidence, that false bravado, could ruin everything if I didn't act carefully. My plan had to be flawless. I couldn't afford mistakes. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. To get the justice, respect, and recognition I deserved, I was about to step into a game far bigger and darker than I had imagined. And then the call came. A number I did not recognize, with a voice that sent chills down my spine. "Jessica, you might want to see what just happened at your sister's bakery." I didn't know what he meant, but the tone, urgent, heavy, made my stomach twist. I grabbed my coat, my notebook, everything I needed, and ran to the car. My heart was racing. Whatever had happened, it was the opening I had been waiting for. But it could also change everything in a way I wasn't prepared for. And just like that, the story I had been carefully crafting, my silent patience, my long-term strategy, my ultimate revenge, was about to explode into something I could never have anticipated. I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing, knowing one thing for certain. By the time this night was over, nothing would ever be the same. The moment I pulled up to my sister's bakery, I knew something was wrong. Cars were scattered everywhere. People standing outside whispering, taking photos, filming. The lights inside were still on, but half the sign had fallen off and a window was cracked. My heart pounded as I walked up to the crowd. Someone recognized me. "Are you Jessica? You probably need to see this." I pushed through the door, stepping over a broken tray. The smell of burnt sugar and stress filled the air. My sister Emily stood in the middle of the chaos, red-faced and trembling, arguing with a health inspector. "What do you mean shut down? My parents put everything into this place. You can't just—" The inspector cut her off. "Ma'am, your freezer temperatures violate code. Your stock is contaminated, and you ignored multiple warning notices. This bakery is closed until further notice." My sister's eyes darted around, and then landed on me, like it was my fault her kitchen looked like a science experiment. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. Before I could respond, the inspector spoke again. "You're lucky we didn't fine you. Someone reported irregularities last week, so we conducted a surprise inspection." Emily's eyes widened. "Who reported me?" The inspector didn't answer, just packed up his clipboard and left. But I knew. The phone call. The urgency. Someone had tipped them off. And it wasn't me. I stepped closer quietly. "Emily, you okay?" She shoved a stack of ruined cupcakes aside, breathing heavily. "I need money. I need more money. I'll fix this, obviously, but I need help. Mom and Dad already transferred everything into the bakery account. I just need more. There it was. The entitlement. The expectation. Like I wasn't the daughter who'd been dismissed for having a dream. She leaned closer. You're getting VC funding, right? You need to help me. Give me, I don't know, 100,000. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. But it got worse. When I got home that night, my parents were waiting. Sitting in my living room, uninvited, my dad stood up. Jess, your sister is going through something serious. She needs your help. My mom folded her hands. You've gotten so lucky lately. We always told you to be careful, and now you have all that investor money. Be a good sister. My chest tightened. Lucky. Lucky? They had called her expansion brilliant, and my startup risky. They handed her $725,000 without blinking. But now that she was drowning, my money was suddenly family money? My dad sighed. Transfer $50,000 to her by tomorrow. We've already sent what we can. I stared at them. You didn't send what you can. You drained everything you had for her without ever thinking of me. My mom frowned. Jessica, don't be dramatic. You know your sister actually needed the money. I felt something inside me shift. Something cold and final. I replied calmly. You told me my dream was too risky, but you threw almost $1 million at someone who can't maintain a freezer. My dad raised his voice. We're not here to argue. This is a crisis. Help your sister. I said nothing, just stood up and opened the front door. You should leave. My mom gasped. Jess, you should leave, I repeated. They left in angry silence. And the second the door clicked shut, I knew. The revenge I planned wasn't just about success anymore. It was about truth, exposure, consequences. For the next few weeks, I worked nonstop. My startup grew faster than I could keep track of. Sales jumped. The new update went viral, and investors wanted meetings every week. The VC who funded us called me one of the smartest founders he's ever backed. The more successful I became, the more desperate my sister grew. My phone filled with messages from her. Just lend me something temporarily. I'll pay you back. Please don't be selfish. I ignored them. Then something suspicious happened. One of my accountants called. Jessica, did you authorize a $12,000 withdrawal labeled family emergency from your personal account? I froze. I didn't withdraw anything. He hesitated. It was accessed using your mother's login. The one you gave her last year? My stomach twisted. I checked my statements. Not just $12,000. She'd taken $39,000 over the last 3 months. My own mother. I sat down, shaking, realizing exactly what had happened. My parents didn't ask me for help. They already took it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even panic. I simply picked up my notebook, the one where all my revenge plans lived, and drew a line under everything I had written before. Whatever I thought I was going to do, it wasn't enough anymore. The next week, an investor conference invited me to speak. My startup was the highlight of their brochure. My sister, meanwhile, was struggling to reopen her bakery. She desperately needed money. She'd been messaging me all morning. Jess, please. You know I'll pay you back. Don't ruin this family. I didn't respond. But fate did something unexpected for me. 30 minutes before I went on stage, I ran into the same investor who had warned me about her earlier, the one who had seen through all her fake numbers. He told me something that dropped my jaw. Your sister approached us again. She lied about her revenue, inflated it by almost 300%. My brain clicked. My parents had poured hundreds of thousands into her failing bakery. And now she was lying to get investor money too. That wasn't just irresponsible, that was fraud. He showed me the email. I felt ice run down my spine. Lying on paperwork to investors is illegal. She could go to jail. Unless someone stopped her first. I walked into the hallway, stomach tight, mind racing. I knew exactly what was coming. My phone buzzed again. Emily. I need $200K by Monday or the bakery goes under. My parents. Help your sister. Do not embarrass this family. It was like they were all walking blindly toward a cliff and expected me to throw myself under them as a cushion. I took a breath. A very long one. Then I smiled. Because suddenly, everything aligned perfectly. They wanted me to save her business? Fine, I would. Just not in the way they expected. The revenge begins. First, I met with the investor who had emailed me. I showed him the messages from my sister, the screenshots of her asking for money, the proof of the bakery's violations. I kept my voice steady. Before anyone invests in her, you should know the real numbers. He nodded slowly. Thank you for telling us. We'll handle the legal side. Next, I visited my bank. I pressed charges for unauthorized access and withdrawals. They froze my mother's account. My parents panicked. My phone rang over 20 times that day. I ignored every call. And then, the final piece of the plan. A week later, the state conducted a second investigation into the bakery, triggered by the investor's legal team. I wasn't involved directly, but I knew exactly what would happen next. That afternoon, my parents stormed into my apartment again, this time furious, frantic, confused. Mom shouted, "Jessica, why did the bank freeze my account?" Dad followed. "Why are investors backing out of Emily's expansion?" I looked them dead in the eyes. "Because lying on investor forms is illegal." Emily's voice cracked. "I didn't mean to, I just needed help." I stepped closer. "For 2 years, you all told me I wasn't good enough, that my ideas were risky, that I'd fail. You called me selfish while taking my money without asking. You funded her dreams, not mine." My dad grabbed his head. "Jess, this could ruin her." I nodded slowly. Yes, it could. That's what happens when you treat business like a family game. You made your choices. Now you live with them. Emily started crying. "You destroyed me," I whispered. "No, you destroyed yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences." They went silent. Completely silent. Just breathing in regret. Then I delivered the final blow. I bought the bakery lease today. The building owner contacted me after the shutdown. "Your bakery isn't under your name anymore." Emily collapsed into a chair. My mom looked horrified. "What are you going to do with it?" I took a deep breath. "Turn it into a co-working space for women founders. The kind of women no one believed in." My parents stared at me, broken, ashamed, speechless. I walked them to the door. "This is the last time you try to control me. I'm done being your backup plan." They left without a word. Epilogue. A year later, my co-working space is full. My startup is now valued at $14 million. I mentor young women every week. My parents avoid talking about money now. My sister moved to another city trying to find herself. We barely speak. But sometimes, I think about the moment everything snapped. When I learned my own family stole from me. When I realized that love without respect is just manipulation. And the truth I discovered at the end of all this? Sometimes the people who doubt you aren't protecting you. They're projecting their own fears onto your future. And the moment you stop living for their approval, your life finally begins.